So we're going to be talking about some some money questions. And money questions are one of our kind of big three application problem questions. And whenever you're dealing with money, it's helpful to think of what you might be dealing with. And I look at this, and immediately when I start reading this, I see, oh, Spencer took out two loans. One is at 3% interest. The other is at 5% interest. He borrowed 500 more at the 5% interest than the 3%. If his total interest charged is $145 after 1 year, how much did he borrow at each rate? So I can tell that I'm going to deal with an interest. And this is a simple interest question. When I do a question like this, I usually will start with two pieces of information, and it looks like I'm going to need to know my interest, and I'll use my interest equation. And interest is equal to the principal times the rate and times the time. Since my time is 1 year, I'm not even going to bother to put 1 in, because I'm just going to be multiplying by 1. Now, the other thing that I like to do with this type of question is I like to start with what we call a word equation. So I'm going to have, I know that he's got an amount, I'll say he's got interest on that 3%, and then he's got interest at that 5%, and that's going to be equal to that total interest. Now, we don't know how much he borrowed, but I do know what these rates are. So I know that 3%, I'm going to write that as 0.03, and this is and it looks like, I've got a certain amount that he borrowed there. I don't know what that is. Now, I do, however, know that, this other interest, he borrowed at 5%. Oops, sorry, 0.5. It's 5% is, we always move our decimal place 2 spaces. And we don't know how much he borrowed, except we do know that he borrowed 500 more at the 5%. So it's the same, it's the same amount as that X plus that 500. And now we know that total interest was $145. So when I'm done with this, I've got this might not be the prettiest equation to solve, but I have an equation I can solve. I should have done this in the black before. I usually like to just use my words like that. But now this is something that I should be able to solve relatively easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and I can't do anything with this 0.03x. So I'm just going to leave that as is for now, 0.03 times our x. But I can distribute this. So this is going to be plus 0.05x, and this is just a number. Don't be afraid of decimals. 0.05 times 500, I believe that is going to be 25, is equal to our 145. From here, I can go ahead and add these two things together. Even though these are decimals, I can add together decimals fairly easily. This is just going to be 0.08x plus our 25 is equal to our 145. Now I'm going to subtract 25 from both sides. So I've got 0.08x is equal to 120. And if I divide both sides, now even though it's a decimal, I can still divide by it. I'm going to divide both sides by that 0.08. So I'll end up with x is equal to, and I believe that's going to be 1,500. So since up here I had said x is this, and I've got that principal, that's going to be x is the principal and 0.03 is our rate, then this means he has got $1,500 at that 3% interest. The other half was x plus 500. This is going to be, well, 1,500. So I'm just thinking about that as like 1,500 plus 500. That means he borrowed 2,000 at a 5% interest rate. I just want to know who Spencer is and how he can borrow at such cheap rates. Anyway, there is our quick example.